I guess we are live. Hello, everyone, and greetings from wherever you are joining. And I know some people might have joined from Far East in Asia. So, knowing the guest, so welcome to the show. If you're new to the show, this is a quick introduction. Of course, my name is Anshuman Tiwari, and this show is Manage Better, where I bring coaches, consultants, and authors who've done really well in one particular skill that can help all of us. Right. So that's the show. But before that, some logistics. I can see that LinkedIn is live, YouTube and Twitter is also live. So if you are on these channels and can let me know, that will be awesome because that tells me that the show is live and everything technically is fine, which has been the case that couple of times that we've had technical challenges. So while you let me know that you have joined and where you have joined from, I have a little bit of a story to share. And disclaimer: I was the only animal harmed in this story, so no no damage done. This is from senior school, 1987. So yeah, I'm that old, and I was a front runner for being the deputy head boy in the school. The selection panel included senior staff and teachers, and it was quite obvious after some time that there will be a contest between me and another student. And just before the voting would begin, I was told to opt out of the race, and which basically means that there was only one candidate now, and he won. Good friend, so no regrets on that. But I later on, of course, asked, why was I asked to withdraw? And the answer was that I could not speak to save my life. And this role needed some element of speaking or public speaking uh, with students, of course. And also, in a school, you would want to address the uh, student gathering and guests and staff and so on, right? And from a state situation where I was told that you can't speak to save your life, I have done fairly well, as you can see, maybe, right? And those of you know me, I've done fairly okay, but it didn't start this way, right? So I took the rebuke or the feedback quite personally, right? Something I don't recommend that you do, but I took it quite personally. And but the difficulty was that I did not know what to do with it, right? You take something personally, but how do you channelize that, uh, anger or angst or anxiety or any other emotion that you're feeling? How do you channelize that? And it wasn't till some years later, when I was in my engineering towards the final years, that I realized how to channelize that, and which was an accident because I attended a personality development class that the college had organized, and by which time it was 92, 93 or so. And that got me on the right track that, okay, the only way to get better is to practice, right? Wrong. The only way to get better is to do the right practice. So that I started doing, and brick by brick, you have what you have. You can see I'm a little better. Those who've known me then and don't known me now can confirm that I'm a little better than that. So, with this background, I wanted to share that, of course, when I started, I did not have too much help. I knew that I needed some help, but I did not know where to go. But today, if you want this kind of help to improve your public speaking, be more confident in front of the camera, speak at a conference or media or a TV show or something, you need a coach. And there are coaches who are experts at this. So I looked around for somebody who can help all of us improve. And I found Nausheen, who's the guest on the show today. I'll bring her in the show in a minute. But very quickly, a little bit about Nausheen. So Nausheen Istiak Chen, or Nausheen I Chen, is a public speaking coach and for senior leaders. And she's my guest today on the 46th episode of Manage Better. So, which I've already shared that I bring people who can help all of us, and she's been very kind to be on the show. So, she's of course a French Pakistani public speaking coach and a two-time TEDx speaker, and has coached CEOs of B2B founders and B2B founders of fast growing companies to speak on BBC, Forbes, TEDx, Bloomberg, Business Insider, TechCrunch, and much more, right? So these are all premier top of the line media, I would say, entities. and she's a coach for people who go live there, right? So I'm, you can say, a little nervous today because I may be getting a score at the end of the show as to how well I did. So if the score is good, I will let you all know. If it is not too good, I will keep it to myself. But with that, let me bring Nausheen to the stream. Welcome, Nausheen, and thank you very much for agreeing to speak to my audience. And over to you. Any opening comments?
Sure. Hi, Anshuman. Thank you so much for having me on the show. There will be no score at all. You're brilliant. And I'm already enjoying the show because you gave us such a wonderful glimpse of your past and your childhood. So I am excited for this conversation. Thank you.
No, thanks a lot, Noshin. And it is my endeavor, of course, to bring people like you who can help each other. And we all need help, right? So all of us need some help, and in specific areas. And your area is a very specific area, particularly for today's time and age, and hence the invite. So a little bit more about you, so that and I wanted to do this little part while you are on camera, so that you can also hear me talk like this. So you, of course, have 15 plus years of training, public speaking experience, and work with Fortune 500 giants, including Procter and Gamble, and now a bootstrapped communication strategy startup with a eye-popping revenue. So I will leave that to people to find out. But one request to everybody who's on the show is that you don't have to be a client with Nausheen to improve your public speaking skills. Right? You can actually be follow her on LinkedIn, and if you just watched her videos, which she posts a few times a week, sometimes 3 4 times a week, you would improve. I have done that, and I can tell you that the small tips, sometimes 2 3 minutes, and sometimes carousels, and sometimes other tips, all of that are fantastic small micro tips which actually help. And sometimes these are the micro tips that Noshin makes a big difference in my view. So my suggestion, recommendation to everybody who's alive and who will probably watch this show later is to go and follow you on LinkedIn and learn from there. And of course, if you want more inputs or specific customized inputs, then you can always approach Noshin for a consulting arrangement. So with that, we are set for the show. I, of course, have some easy questions, Noshin. All the difficult questions come from my audience. So let's blame them. Let's blame them right away, right? I don't take any blame. All the tough ones come from them, and I actually already see some fans that you have.
They're very
Mrinal,
kind.
a common friend. Um,
Hi, Mrinal. She's awesome.
Yeah, I know her, and we have somebody from Hong Kong joining, my friend Daniel. So yeah, so already a good audience, quite a few others. So I will skip this part and come to it later. But let's get to the question so that we can be of use to the audience. So first
Mhm.
up, and this is something been on my mind, that we are who we are, right? So I'm who I am. Why do, and if I have any difficulty in speaking in public, or I'm a very boring speaker, or I read my slides, or I put people to sleep as I speak, um, why should I even change? Why do we even need to consider speaking better? Why at all, right? So that would be my first
Mhm.
one. What you?
Great. And that's a great question to get us started. It's speaking better is not about changing who you are, it's about being the most impactful version of yourself. And why should you do that? Because making an impact in any situation basically means getting what you want. If you're talking to your boss, you want your boss to be impressed. You want that promotion. You want that raise. If you're talking to a potential client, you want the deal. If you're talking to a bunch of people, you want them to like you. You want them to think, wow, this person was so knowledgeable. They contributed to something that I really wanted to learn or I wanted to know. So, learning how to speak better, how to express your ideas better is just like making sure that you have the right tools to succeed in whatever it is that you want to do.
Great. I think good opener to the show. And of course, having had some experience now, Shin, I also realized that, this is how I started off thinking that I am like this, why should I change? And the background, of course, to that is that many people like to change their accent depending on where they are speaking and so on. And that is probably the root of this question that people struggle with, where there is no need to change that in a very globalized world. People do get our accent easily. And of course, if something is natural to you, or you've been brought up in a particular area, that's okay. I've been working a global role for almost 20 years now, with at least 25 countries that I have been able to interact with. And I find
Mm-hmm.
that people get our accent easily. There is no problem at all. We are overly
Yeah.
conscious, and we try and change sometimes, and think too much about it. So I'm glad that
Mm-hmm.
you brought this up, that it is more about impact and influence. And it need not be only for public speaker. No, not everybody goes to BBC, but we do go to work, and we do have an audience at work as well. And projects, global settings, and of course, everybody loves that promotion that you spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
So, moving on, the and I see this way, but I see public speaking more as a means to improve our impact and influence, right? So we can influence more people, whether it is a work setting or a social setting,
Mm-hmm.
or even family settings, and the kind, and of course, impact. Right? So, not to say that only the speaking part gets you the impact and influence, but it packages and wraps it up nicely for everybody. Would you agree? And would you have any examples from your wide consulting, or people that you coach? Would you have any examples that you can share? You can, of course, don't have to name people if you are not comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with that. Any examples, just to make it real for our audience?
Yeah, sure. So you actually gave me some seeds that I would like to, nourish a little bit. You talked about how not everyone is going to go tomorrow and speak on the BBC or on a global stage, but we all have conversations every single day. And the idea really is to be able to maximize those conversations, to learn the true art of expression and articulation, and learn what kind of impact you want to have, so that each conversation means something and helps you get a little bit closer to your goals. So, in that way, public speaking is really when you speak to any audience. It could be when you're giving a presentation, it could be when you're talking to a group of friends, or it could be when you're having lunch with your boss and their boss. That's also public speaking, because you're able to get through to more than one person at a time. So, in that way, if you look at success stories, there are success stories all over the place. There are always people that you remember. And it starts with what you are impressed by, what is memorable for you. We can all think of great presenters, great keynote speakers, great people that we like listening to. So we start there, and then we think of what it is that we liked about them. And this is the part which is difficult for a lot of people to grasp. They just know, oh yeah, I just like hearing that person talk. But what you don't realize is that they're using a lot of these tools. They understand how to modulate your voice. That was the second seed you planted earlier, where you talked about accents. Absolutely, your accent is lovely, and I never advise anyone to change their accent. What I do advise them on is learning more about their voice and understanding what is voice modulation all about. How do you vary the pitch and tone of your voice so that you can have the maximum impact? You can emphasize the right things. You can make sure that you convey energy and excitement when you want people to be excited with you. Or you want people to consider something that is serious. You want them to pause and think about something that you've just said. All those skills are skills that these accomplished speakers have worked on for years or decades of their lives. So, in that way, really, I would say success stories are everywhere. And It really begins with understanding what you want to accomplish, who you are, and where you want to go. So that addresses the third seed that you planted, which was about introversion. And I get this question a lot. Nausheen, I'm an introvert. How can I really go on stage and be this larger than life presence? It's just not me. And that's a great thing to bring up at the outset, because you shouldn't try to be someone you're not. I am always me. If you catch me on a Zoom call or you grab lunch with me at, the neighborhood restaurant, I'm going to be the same person. I'm not pretending to be someone that I'm not. So if you're an introvert, understand how to make impact while still being an introvert. And there have been so many great speakers that are actually introverts in real life. They do one of two things: either they stay quiet and they have a quiet, powerful presence on stage or when speaking to a larger audience, which is entirely possible. You don't have to be super energetic. Or a lot of introverts go a second route where they develop this persona which they adopt for the stage. And that is perfectly fine. In fact, a lot of actors and stand up comedians will do that. Talk show hosts will do that. What happens is you turn on a specific part of you, a specific side of you, because you want to relate to the audience. You want them to feel like you're approachable and you're making an effort to get to know them. So I wanted to talk about those little things that you planted, because those that made me think. I don't know if I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely. I think, and I like how you picked up, these seeds that I didn't plant purposefully. But this is the this is the fun of a conversation, a live conversation, that it is very organic and it is built in public. And I always say
Mm,
that, many of us, and these days, for last couple of years, after the slight popularity I have on LinkedIn, people think of me as a creator and other stuff, which I absolutely don't like. But it is what it is. One of the things I keep telling anybody who asks me, and this is slightly a digression, but I keep telling and that we are building ourselves in public, and it's the same applies to public speaking or any kind of speaking, is that you are building yourself in public. If you are going to imagine that, okay, and it is like, a sport or anything, let's say a marathon, that and I've done some marathons, so I know what I'm talking about, that okay,
mm,
I'm registered for this, and 3 months down the line I am crossing the, or finish line with my family, and with a bunch of sweets or whatever they have for me. It does not happen that way. You have to be built in public every day till that race day, and maybe much later, to be able to do that on the race day. So one message for
yeah.
anybody who wants to do any better in speaking, or online presence, or any kind of endeavor in this day and age, for the last few years and probably going forward, you are being built in public. So if you are not willing and ready to be built in public, then that improvement is extremely difficult, and which is something I can, summarize what Notion you were saying, that these are all uh, people we admire and all. They are also being built in public. They are not hiding in a closet and saying that, okay, I will practice my speech all day here and then go on, Sydney Opera House and then nail it. It doesn't happen this way. So
Mm.
a good segue. I wanted to ask this question a little later, but since you've now planted that seed, I will ask it now. You mentioned some speakers that you admire, and or in general, we all admire some speakers. Who are the speakers you
Mm.
admire or you consider as effective public speakers, or speakers with impact and influence, and why? So, because you are a public speaking coach, so I can ask you a why. Who are these people and why?
There are so many. I think about this a lot. It's kind of like if I was a musician or a DJ and you asked me, what are your favorite songs? I literally feel like a speaking DJ sometimes, because when I work with my clients, I part of the work that I do is that I find interesting talks for them to listen to, watch, and analyze. So each week, some of the homework that I give them is to watch these talks, but then I find them for them because I like giving them a mix of different kinds of things, different kinds of speakers. There are so many incredible speakers out there, and we can learn something from all of them. And these are speakers that we all know. They're absolutely at the top of their craft. There's, Simon Sinek and Brene Brown. There's Gary Vee, who's built his entire brand, an entire, mega enterprise on speaking. There's Alex Hormonzi, who's and Mr. Beast. There are so many different kinds of speakers, and absolutely YouTubers fall in that category. These are people that have really mastered the art of speaking well. Marcus Brownlee, Linus from Linus Tech Tips. These are mega influencers who've used their personality, the art of articulation, being able to take their ideas from where they are hidden inside their brain out into the world and made their ideas influence other people and got into places that people can only imagine being at. There are also a lot of doors that speaking well opens for you. And this is something that I'm always in awe of, because a lot of knowledge and a lot of people are behind closed doors for us. There are people that we just cannot imagine talking to or getting access to. Presidents of countries, for example, or influential millionaires or billionaires. And the people that I'm talking about, they all started from zero. Marcus Brownlee, for example, he started from just making little videos on YouTube. And he grew to a point where then he got access. He now has access to anyone he wants. If he wants to talk to a president, if he wants to talk to Bill Gates, if he wants to, go to the moon, he can talk to Elon Musk. I'm sure he has. So
He surely
it
can.
all came from, right? It all came from being able to articulate well. And that's really the power of it. So this is the one thing that I want people to really think about, that don't define public speaking narrowly. That's what I see a lot of people think of, like, oh, public speaking is just being on this stage and giving this formal presentation. No, it's not. It's about speaking to any audience, anywhere, in any way, on any platform. It's just about finding your voice and knowing what to do with it.
No, fantastic. And if I may add a little bit, and thanks for the names, because I think a couple of people, including Monica Khandwali. Monica, so some of the names Nausheen mentioned, and we will try and mention these names in the chat later as well. But Marcus Brownlee is, of course, a YouTuber. You can see his video.
Mhm.
So a lot of tech reviews, but ignore the content. You are looking at him for his speaking abilities, and there are quite a few. So
Mhm.
the point is, of course, that you can always find these people in this today's social media age. There are many whom we can find. We are speaking to one today, Nausheen herself, and she will give you
Mhm.
many more. But the trick is to find some and then learn from them, right? So it's not. I know a
Yeah.
few people, and initially I used to do that as well. I would watch the video and then I didn't have any single sentence. What did I learn from this video, right? So I spent 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever is the length, and I don't have anything to learn from that. That is the difficulty that most people feel. It's not the number of people, it's not the names. It's many people are there whom you can follow and you can learn something from them. And I absolutely loved, Noshin, when you said that it opens doors. In my own modest career, particularly in the beginning, I had a very ordinary start to my career, and somewhere down the line I realized that I am nobody's going to come with a silver platter and give me that opportunity. And I was the introverted, shy person towards the end of the class or room, who would not take up these opportunities to speak up. And when I started taking
Mhm.
those opportunities, I used to get invited. Can you open the show? Our CEO is speaking. Can you do the intro? Absolutely, I will do it. I'll do it. I fumbled many times. I struggled. I made a mess of it. But the beauty was that people were still loving it, because they knew that if they don't like what I'm doing, they will be called up on the stage. But So I fed on the fear that others had, and over a period of time I got a lot better because of this. So I can relate to what you said. I'm sure many in the audience can also relate to it. Moving on, slightly, maybe question that you probably started addressing earlier, but I'll go a little deeper there. In the work that you do with coaching people or helping people get better at their craft of speaking, for anything, maybe for a conference or for a media interview, what are the most common issues that you find? And I'm asking this not to enjoy or derive any pleasure out of other people's misery, but it is more that we can learn from it. And so many in the audience, including
Mhm.
myself, we might find, oh, this is me, right? So that's the intent of the question. So any common traits that you find which you feel that, oh, this happens a lot?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that I can probably categorize the kinds of challenges that I've helped people through into three broad categories. So, the first category is all mindset. A lot of people have a mental block when it comes to being confident on camera or on stage. People feel like this is something that is completely new. It's a skill that they just haven't learned before, and they feel ill equipped. They feel unprepared. So there are mental blocks and fears that are in place. Maybe they've had a traumatic experience in the past where they're frozen on stage. Maybe they feel that their competition or their peers can speak so much better. So they have an inferiority complex or an imposter syndrome. Maybe they fear judgment because a lot of people rise up the corporate ladder without needing to speak too much. But then they suddenly find themselves in a spot where they've suddenly become a manager, they've suddenly become more visible, and now they have to give more presentations. So they start feeling like people are going to be looking at them and expecting a lot, and they are going to let people down. Fear of judgment, fear of criticism. So that's the first broad category, which is definitely super important and very challenging to work through, but it's entirely possible to address that. And it should be where you start. If you've never spoken on camera before or on stage and you're fearful, the first thing to do is not to just start getting into it and start figuring out I should stand like this, I should use my hands like this. The first step is to figure out what are the fears that you have so that you can go in with the right mindset. The second category is, of course, a lot of people don't have the right skill set. They have never really learned the art of enunciation, for example. When you are speaking on stage or you're on camera, you have to enunciate a little bit more. When I'm talking to my friend, I can just talk like this, and that's fine because that's how they talk and that's how I talk. And we understand each other. But when you're on camera, when you're on stage and you're trying to be clear and make a point and leave an impact, it's very important to enunciate. That's just one of the many, many things that you should be learning and improving over time. Of course, your body language, your energy, voice modulation that I talked about earlier, which is so important, they all play into it. So, this is a challenge for a lot of people because they simply haven't spent enough time learning the tools of the trade. And that is a fairly straightforward process for a lot of people. Usually, there are a few stumbling blocks down the way where a specific thing is hard for someone to do. For some people, it might be being able to control their body language and they're always going like this. For others, it's controlling the pace at which they talk. But that is definitely a process that everyone can go through, which really strengthens my belief, which I definitely stand by this, that anyone can learn to speak with impact. So it's about knowing what tools you need and then using them the right way. And the third category of challenges is a lot of people view each speaking opportunity as a one off. They might present to someone maybe once in 2 or 3 weeks, and then they might go and speak to a few friends a few weekends later. They might go maybe on a podcast 2 months later, and they're not taking time after each speaking opportunity to debrief with themselves, to understand what are the challenges they overcame, what did they do well, what can they improve on next time, and how they can use each opportunity to get just 1% better. And this is super important to actually target that first category of challenges, which was mindset. Because if you were afraid of going on stage or going on camera to speak and you did it anyway, it's so important to take that time to just talk to yourself, challenge that self narrative, the self limiting belief that you might have had, and say, you know what, I actually just did it. And that means I can do it again. And next time I'll be even better. So, those are the three main challenges that I've seen and helped people work through.
No, absolutely fascinating, and I'm glad kept it this simple, because really these challenges are there for everyone. These are not challenges from Mars and Jupiter that we have to land something at. So and in the
Yeah.
little experience that I have had and working with people and working on myself as well, and I did say it in the opening that it's not only practice, but it is the right practice. If you are doing a little conscious practice, so I used to, for example, pick up something, one unique thing that I will try and improve in the next 2 3 sessions. So for the longest time, and even now, and being bilingual, sometimes you think in another language and speak in another language, and then you are struggling for that word. And particularly in a global stage where people are there from multiple geographies, and you don't want to use some words which might be very difficult for an audience, you actually struggle. So I was in a role where I had to speak to people from various countries, including East Europe, you know where the comprehension of English language may not be the same, right? And I had to be conscious about that. So I actually listed out some common words that I was very used to using, and I struck them off completely for 2 3 years, just to make sure that I'm getting across to the people. Because if I don't get across to the people, forget work, they are not even listening to me. So that's something that I can add, particularly for people who might be in senior roles, who have multicultural or multi geography global teams. They do need to actually simplify it a lot, and also speak slowly, particularly non-English speaking situations. And this comes from realization and practice. I was given feedback, and when I asked and said, "You speak just too fast for us," and I thought that I was a normal, speech person. I didn't have any illusions about myself about speaking fast. And in India, nobody had accused me of that. So this was
No.
completely new one. So I can add that a little bit. So I hope there was a question earlier. I think Monica. So this is answer is similar
Yes.
to something that you wanted to know, but I'll take one question that has been repeated in the show a little bit. Deep Shah, how can we measure improvement in our public speaking skills? So Deep Shah must be a quality professional like me. He wants an improvement and evidence of improvement in everything. So Deep, whether you are a quality professional or not, you now are. I have given you that crown. But let's hear from Nausheen. Is it possible, first of all, to measure improvement in public speaking? And if yes, how would one know?
So I can tell you a way to do it formally and a way to do it informally. Formally is something that I do with a lot of my clients, where we actually have a 360 anonymous peer survey that we do right at the beginning of the coaching engagement, where I actually ask them to send out this anonymous survey to their peers, their teammates, their colleagues, their management, their even their family, which basically asks them these questions about person X. Is this person memorable when they speak? What are the strengths that you've already seen? Do you remember what kind of personality they exude? What is it that you think they can improve on? And that really gives you a very clear insight into how you're being perceived. And sometimes it's been, in fact, I think almost all the time, it's been very surprising and insightful to really go through that. And we do so many of these assessments in at work, but very few are specifically focused on communication skills. So it's a 360 communication skills assessment which is very useful. And you can do that periodically. So you do it at the beginning of the coaching engagement, and we do it about 6 to 7 weeks in to really understand, has there been a change? Have people's attitudes and perceptions changed towards you? So that's a more formal, regimented way of doing it. Informally, there are many other ways that you can tell whether or not you are improving. The absolute best thing to do is to record yourself and watch yourself back. And if you can learn, edit your videos. And this doesn't even need to be published, it can be just for you. I would, of course, encourage you to publish it because I think only good things can happen when you put yourself out there and you create video content on any platform. So even if you don't want to publish it, create these videos for yourself. They can be like a minute long, 2 minutes long, where you talk about a specific lesson that you've learned, a specific area of expertise, a specific thing that you really want to share and talk about. Could even be about your pet or what you ate for breakfast. Start creating these videos on a regular basis every week or so, and make sure you watch yourself back. And the editing part is important because that's where you understand how polished you were when you were speaking. So, this is a direct example from my experience. I started making videos for the first time maybe about 7 or 8 years ago when I was still a filmmaker. Because I had a 7 year stint as a filmmaker and commercial director. And I thought it was a great idea to create these backstage behind the scenes videos of how we were working and performing as a film team. What I would do would be I would stand on the film set and talk about what we were doing. And that was great. It made a lot of impact. But then when I would watch the videos back, I gave them to my editor and he made a first pass and he sent them to me. And every second sentence had like. So, like, I want to talk like, so, like, this was like similar to what you were talking about with, your pet phrases or going towards another language. And that really made me realize. And now I've just used really twice. You see, I've become intentional about it. So now I know when I've used something like that. So that made me realize that filler words need to go. They become distracting, they dilute your message, and ultimately dilute your impact. So you only understand that this can happen if you start watching and then editing your videos, because the editing part makes you analyze what is actually happening. And you do it over a period of time, you will automatically see progress, or you won't. You feel like you're stuck at the same level, and then you realize you need to do something about it. So that's a really great way that you can practice how to record, how to really be succinct, how to be concise, and improve by yourself.
Totally awesome. I think the last tip around Nausheen, where you mentioned editing, in the last 2 3 years that I've been doing these shows, and initially I was doing recording and then editing, and then most of these shows are live. But I do take the show to a software and then convert it into a transcript and then edit. And during the editing, I have realized that so many people, and most of my guests are accomplished people, so full respect for them, they use the word and is is like and when you are
Yeah.
editing the it is like three times in a sentence. And that's when I started looking for my own words, because I said, okay, if people are using these words, there must be words that I am using. And I did find some, not to the same extent, because maybe I had become a little conscious, and maybe is a word that I use quite a bit, like I just used. So very useful tip, and I can give you solid evidence that from the last 2 3 years that I have been doing these shows, and since I do the editing myself, I don't have a staff for that. The learning is actually much more, because I'm actually seeing it online on screen, and the pain of actually taking it out every then then it's a easy skill to learn. But glad that you brought it up. uh,
Mm.
I'm little nervous now because my father is in the show, So I think I've done
Oh,
well.
that's nice.
Yeah. So, but I'll quickly move to another person who might be more kind. So, Hani Abdin, it's not so much a question, Notion. I think it's a more a comment. Speaking in public or an audience is really not an easy task. Two main points I learned. So he's sharing his experience. Thank you, Hani. And I hope I'm pronouncing your own name right. But being yourself is key. Hence, creating your own version of style. Yes, of course. I think that's something Noshin also pointed out, that we don't have any requirement to be somebody else. Of course, if we have some huge disadvantage or difficulty, or we do something, like I know people who read slides. Now then I don't tell them to be yourself. Please don't be yourself if you're reading your slides and reading everything that is in your script. Then this advice of being yourself is not applicable. So being yourself is an advice which is more that be in your own skin, be comfortable as a person who can speak, and not that don't change or don't improve. That's not the approach. But thank you, Hani. Very nice comments. uh, Coming more, so I'll take one more. How can Yogesh Botre is asking, how can we take feedback after a session about how we did? I feel difficulty asking about it. Any better way you can suggest? So yeah, good question. You suggested, of course, the formal approach that you have with your client, but that's when somebody is a client, they have access to your survey or form or 360-degree form, like you said. But if I
Mm.
want to do and Yogesh wants to do, and we are invited for a show or a session or anything like this, and we want feedback, any suggestion how we can get that feedback?
So this depends on the talk. A lot of companies already have a feedback process for people that attend a talk or a presentation, whether it's you doing a presentation internally at your company or you're going somewhere to give a presentation. So the first thing to do would be to ask the organizer or the management
Yeah.
about the feedback process that might already be in place and ask if you could get access to some of those results. You'd be surprised. Every time I get invited to speak at a company, 99.9% of the time, they have a feedback process in place. They just don't think of sharing it with the speaker. But when I ask for it, they give me some of the results. They will anonymize them, but I don't care who gave what feedback, but they will give me a summary of the results. Sometimes they even give me a summary of the questions that were asked after the session or before the session. So the first step is to ask if there's something already in place that you simply might not have access to. The second thing really applies if you have a big event or a big presentation that you're going to and you're speaking there. Take a friend with you or a few friends with you and ask them for feedback directly after the session, but also ask them to feel the room a little bit.
Hmm.
Someone I knew, actually, someone I coached, Piyush, I don't think he's watching right now, but he did this approach and I was really inspired by it because I never did this myself. And he took his friends he was even traveling to Europe at one point. He took his friends all the way there because he was presenting, and he got his friends to give him direct feedback. And then he would go into the audience after his talk and just strike up conversations with people. If you've done a good presentation, people will come to you afterwards. They will naturally seek you out. They will naturally come and say, "This was so good. I really enjoyed your talk. Can I have your email? Can I have your business card?"
Yeah.
And that is an opportunity for you to start asking. "It's so great. Thank you. You're so kind. Can I ask, what did you like about it? What did you like about my presentation? What do you remember?" So
Hmm.
that seeking that feedback actively is something that you can put in place as a system. And the third thing you can do is, again, recording. I mean, seriously, the camera in your phone is your best friend if you want to improve. So when you're going on stage and you're speaking, all you need to do is set up your phone on a phone stand somewhere close to the stage. You're not really looking to get high quality footage. The idea is just to get a video
Yeah.
of yourself speaking so that you can watch it back later. There are, of course, ways to also get high quality footage if you want to use it later on socials. But right now, our aim is to improve our speaking. So you
Yeah.
can always do this. Just get a little phone stand, put it somewhere close to the stage so that it can capture you on the stage presenting. And I don't think any event would say no to this. They wouldn't mind. It's your own phone. You can really have control over this. Don't rely on someone else to record it for you, and don't rely on the event to record it for you. That's something that may not happen later. They might not even give you their recording. So if you do this third piece, you get a video of yourself speaking, then you have data. Every single time you present, you're generating data, and that is priceless. That means after 5 events or 5 presentations, you have 5 different videos, and each of them is going to tell you something about your speaking skills.
Totally awesome. This recording bit reminds me that this used to be quite common when people were going upstage, and the offline things, and which last 2 3 years we didn't have enough, but it is coming back now. So Yogesh, you asked this question, this could be coming back. If you are going on stage, you can actually do this quite easily now. Everybody has a phone which is quite capable these days. Use it for something more than we normally use it for. It will be quite good. I have done this myself, by the way, Noshin. I've recorded myself, and I did realize that I was nobody gave me this feedback, but I noticed that I was repeating some of my points way too often, and that was more because I was thinking I am creating more impact through repeating it, but the way it was coming out was that I'm just repeating it 3 4 5 times rather than leaving it once and letting it create that impact. So these are things I learned, and I'm sure anybody else who uses this can also. So there are quite a few questions, Noshin, but I remember that you wanted a little less than an hour for this show. I'm sure you have other things to catch up. But one question I will have, and then we can wrap up, is that, uh, of course, you did earlier mention that YouTube and other media where we can see videos of people whom we admire, and including your channel. I'll bring up your channel quickly so that people can catch that as well. So Nausheen's channel is mentioned here. If you go to YouTube and use Nausheen I Chen, you should get to her channel. But coming to the question, of course, the question I had in mind is that any resources you can mention other than, of course, YouTube, any books or any study material or anything that you think people can refer and get a little better. Of course, given that they have to still practice what they learn, but where can they find more information on getting better? Any books or anything like that? Anything?
Books are great, and I definitely encourage people to read them. But I would say that if your aim is to get better at public speaking, you have to watch a lot of people speak in public,
Mm.
and you have to watch videos of people explaining things to you that you might not have seen before. You might not have got before. So books, yeah, I have some books that I love. There's this one, Confessions of a Public Speaker. It's great. It's this guy who's been public speaking most of his life, and he talks about all the awesome things he's learned. There's this one, Talk Like Ted, which is great if you want to do a TEDx talk. It's the 9 public speaking secrets of the world's top minds. But really, more than that, I would recommend going on YouTube and looking up TEDx talks. This works even if you don't want to be on the TED stage, because TEDx or TED is such a huge treasure trove of amazing speakers. Go on the channel, on the TEDx channel on YouTube, and look up the different videos they have in their playlist. And when you start watching them, don't just watch them as a consumer. Try to watch them and analyze them as a creator, which means try to understand what are the different tools this person is using. How are they using their hands? What kind of energy are they bringing? How are they using their voice? What kind of words are they using? When are they pausing? When are they increasing the pace at which they're speaking? When are they slowing down? And if you can develop this analytical ability, it will really pay off, because every time you see someone speaking, we see people speaking every day, all the time. You will really be able to understand how good this person is at speaking, what kind of impact they're making, and what are the tools that they're using. So much of this is just learning by observing and learning by analyzing. And then, of course, I share free tips all the time. You mentioned that very kindly earlier, too. So I have a ton of free resources. If you just go on my LinkedIn, you'll find videos on all kinds of speaking tips, how to speak as an introvert, how to handle. I saw someone ask a question about how to handle misbehavior of the audience. I have videos on how to handle difficult questions, how to say you don't know something when you don't know something, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, that I can completely vouch for. So I know we are running
Thank you.
out of time, but there are a few more questions, and I noticed, like you said, Noshin, that if people are following you on LinkedIn and go back a few weeks or something, they would probably know all these answers. So I strongly recommend once again that if you like the show today, please take some time to go to Noshin's profile and click that bell icon so that you can get instant alerts. And if you have still some love left, you can come to my profile and do the same as well. So I don't mind that at all. And I've put my, some of you have asked about where are the archives. So LinkedIn archives is a little difficult to find. So since this show is also on YouTube, you can go to this channel at the rate manage slash or hyphen better. This is my channel, and you will find all the recorded videos under a playlist for Manage Better. There is more content, but since you are more interested in this particular content series, that's available. LinkedIn is getting a little better now with um, making their videos available as a particular, I would say, tab, but it's way far behind YouTube in that sense. So with that, we will close the show. Thank you very much, Nausheen. One small public announcement before I end each show is that next week we have a interesting show once again, but it is evening 6 p.m. So 11th of March, evening 6 p.m. with a meditation and wellness guru, Pandit Dasa. He's a corporate monk turned corporate trainer now, and very popular on LinkedIn as well. So most of my hunting is on LinkedIn. You can make out. So do join. I'll, of course, during the week I'll share the joining coordinates. But unlike my regular time 11 a.m., next week, next Saturday, that is, it is 6 p.m. The speaker is based out of the US, and morning wasn't that comfortable. Okay, so with that, I'll let everybody go. And thank you once again, Nausheen. And it was a pleasure speaking to you. We will, of course, stay in touch and try and do this after some weeks once again for our audience. And if there is anything that I can do for you, let me know. With that, bye bye. See you next time.
Thank you so much, Anshuman. Thank you for having me on your awesome show. And thank you, everyone, for all the amazing questions.
I'm glad they loved it. Bye bye.
Bye.